Good evening. Peter Spencer could easily be any one of us. A hard-working Aussie now embroiled in a life and death fight to save his home and his livelihood. He doesn't want sympathy, he just wants a fair go. Now on day 46 of a hunger strike, his family has grave concerns for his health and want him to give up his Tower protest. Before he does that, he wants a meeting with Kevin Rudd. But as James Thomas found out, the Prime Minister apparently has more pressing matters to deal with than a farmer in his backyard.
The first 2 nights I was -4. But the rain and the wind and the swaying all at once is just whips you about like you're in a mix master. I just keep going, I just keep going, I just keep going. They've got the wrong person if they think I'll walk away.
As a part of Australia's commitment to protect native vegetation and to reduce carbon emissions under the Kyoto Protocol, Peter and thousands of farmers like him across the country have been subjected to a government-imposed ban on land clearing. The saved trees are natural carbon sinks worth an estimated $10.8 billion to the government in reduced carbon emissions, should Kevin Rudd's emissions trading scheme go ahead. But here's the rub. The farmers, who can no longer develop this land, have received no compensation.
They're welcome to take my land, but the Constitution says they have to pay.
Not only for him, for us as well. He's fighting for all Australian farmers.
Peter's hunger strike has galvanised the farming community. On Monday, hundreds of supporters gathered at Parliament House and at Peter's property in the Southern Highlands to force the government to meet Peter's demands that farmers be justly compensated for what they describe as the insidious, deceitful theft of their land.
Why should they take without paying?
Like bloody hell. It's not just farmers, it's people that own things. Property rights, freehold. That's what it means.
The only response from the Prime Minister's office is he has said the government does not take any notice of people taking passive protests, as in hunger strikes, or threatening the government. They say we make laws and rules and policy in the national interest, and Peter Spencer needs to come down off there, get medical attention and go to the courts to get remedy.
I've heard that the government's line is that they are not going to be held to ransom by one man's blackmail project, even though they would be sympathetic to your personal situation, that they can't make policy on the basis of one man's stand.
That, yes.
What's your response to that?
Mr. Rudd, how dare you tell me that you'll just carry on breaching the Constitution when I followed every path known. I wrote to you 2 years ago and said, don't throw that excuse up to me 2 years' time. I knew he would try and pass the buck.
The buck will stop with me.
How dare you work outside the Constitution? Wake up to yourself. It's just not on. I'm not here trying to threaten you. I'm trying to get this country back on track.
It has to be understood. Peter Spencer is not an anti-green. He's not anti-environment. He's simply asking for a fair go.
Peter King is Peter Spencer's barrister. Before any hunger strike, the two Peters spent years of fighting for compensation in the courts to no avail.
Under our Constitution, the notion that we have, which is fundamental to our democracy, is that nobody loses his or her or its land unless it's been paid for.
Peter Spencer is a hot political potato. And the reason being is that both sides of politics have played a role in this legislation which has effectively locked farmers out of their land without compensation. But Kevin Rudd is the Prime Minister of the day, and if he doesn't deal with this issue, the issue may well deal with him. Now, they can't be seen to accede to blackmailing or threats, but at the same time, they can't be seen to have let a man die. What have you seen from the Prime Minister's office?
Oh, only the aeroplane that he's in. I haven't seen much of him at all.
He's written a children's book.
Ignoring a man on a hunger strike is politically very dangerous for Rudd, especially when, at the same time, he is seen writing kids' books, commentating the cricket.
Prime Minister, I know you've got a busy schedule. You've been all over the place. Pleasure to have you in here again, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you, Slats. Thank you, Warnie, for putting up with me again and my non-expert commentary. I really appreciate it.
And then lunching with the cricketers.
I love your race.
How are you?
But meeting the farmers and accepting their demands carry their own set of political pitfalls.
Australia is facing penalties in excess of $100 billion to the UNFCCC.
The UNFCCC is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Now, if Kevin Rudd were to allow Peter and other farmers to recommence land clearing now, they would likely not meet their carbon reduction targets and therefore face massive fines. And as the friend of the chair in Copenhagen, Kevin Rudd would also have a little egg on his international face.
I think with carbon emissions there's going to be benefits and burdens, and of course there will be some winners and losers.
Professor Diane Bell is sympathetic to the farmers' quest for compensation for their lost land, but she strongly disagrees with any push to allow further clearing in Australia.
But at some point in Australia we have to say our practices have been unsustainable. The land is salting up. We have tried to force agricultural practices in some areas which are just unsustainable, and that's going to be a very brave government that bites the bullet and makes those decisions.
The Labor government aren't the only ones feeling heat over this hunger strike.
So, you representing Clark?
No, we're not filming that, mate.
I'll see you outside.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, your mate's the media, eh? Get off it, you're trespassing.
The moment we arrived at Peter Spencer's property, Liberal MP Bill Heffernan was leaving, and he had little choice.
Come on, up. You've been asked to leave the property. The owner has ordered you off. Go. That's all right, no. You've been told.
For these farmers, Bill Heffernan represents the former Howard government and its role in implementing the legislation which they say has locked them from their land.
He was sitting on a ledge in Sydney, mate. He'd have been down ages ago.
They went to Kyoto to do a deal, unbeknown to the farmers, to lock up millions of hectares of land to meet the Kyoto commitment because they knew that the energy sector's emissions were going to grow.
The farmers are furious because other carbon polluters, such as the energy sector, have been massively compensated during a time that their carbon emissions have risen. At the same time, agricultural emissions have reduced, but farmers say they haven't received a cent. And they believe this is the thin edge of the wedge.
And yet they brought out this bullshit legislation to try and deprive landowners of their rights. Vegetation's only one. It was water, and it's going to be residential opportunity. It's going to be minerals.
Irrigation licences.
Irrigation licence. The bullshit never ends.
Why aren't the people rising up and saying, we are the people, and these politicians and public servants are our servants? We're not peasants. This is not an aristocracy. How come they're more interested in their football and their beer? Our liberty's only maintained by eternal vigilance. Let's not forever forget that.
Peter has lost 40 kilograms and the indignities of a hunger strike are many. He must urinate out a tube and deal with severe constipation.
It's a hard job to keep clean and I stink.
Oh, well.
I want a good wash, I want a good shit and I want a good feed.
For Peter, jokes serve as a distraction to the real chance that his eternal vigilance could come at a very high price. So you're not afraid of dying?
Not really. I believe there's a lot more to life than this.